The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel welcomes you to this edition of the Mayors and Supervisors Weekly Update, brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history.
Hey, welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Mayors and Supervisors Update. I'm Chris Carosa, publisher of the Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel, and each week we bring you the goings-on in the towns and villages in our coverage area. This week we're going to be starting with Mike Fulks, Lima Supervisor. Mike, what's going on in Lima?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for hosting us again. This past week I have been at the New York State Association of Counties meeting, and I am bringing back information that will affect everyone, not just Livingston County and the town of Lima. The farm bill, which we got briefed on, it does not look like is going to get done on time. So you can expect a continuing resolution at the federal level to keep the existing farm bill in place while they try to work it out next year. Currently, the new farm bill is set at $1.3 trillion. That's with a T, and 1.1 trillion of that is for SNAP benefits. And you can do the math on what's left for the farmers. We also spent a bunch of time getting a presentation on companion animals and the issue with rescues, shelters, that kind of thing in New York State. The laws that I'm talking about now have already been passed. So there is a puppy mill bill that goes into effect in December of 24, and the balance of the regulations for all shelters and rescues and such go into place December of 2025. All of the rescues and shelters have to be registered. They all have to have a myriad of things because they're going to be inspected all the time, including impervious floors, ammonia meters, and the segregation of cats and dogs in different rooms, and many, many other things. Livingston County operates a shelter for dogs. We have animal control for dogs. We have a dog shelter down at the Gypsy Lane complex down in Mount Morris. And these regulations will affect them. But anybody who's running a volunteer adoption system or rescue or whatever, they all fall under these categories too. And so nysapf.org is where you can find all the information. There is a companion animal capital fund that all of these places can apply to. It is a 10% match sort of deal. So you spend $1, you get $9 to make these improvements to keep your shelter open and going. We also talked about the New York State Climate Plan, which of course I've been talking about for a couple of years now, as the Climate Action Plan, same name. So the Climate Action Plan is in place, done, passed. There are now working on the scoping plan, which that is the DEC's purview. That is 445 pages currently of scope around the regulations. So all of the things that we'll have to do. The presentation I just saw was by a systems analyst who has taken a look at the entire thing and is trying to figure out what the low-hanging fruit for New York State is so that we can make the goals that have been set in the climate plan using the different mechanisms in the scoping plan. So everybody went to school and they learned about pints and quarts and gallons and how to do the conversions and all that other stuff. Now we have to learn about carbon dioxide and methane and nitrous oxide, which, I mean, back in the day, nitrous oxide was what you hooked up to your car to make it go really, really fast. So 1 ton of methane is 84 tons of CO2. and 1 ton of nitrous oxide is 264 tons of CO2. In New York State, about 10% of the CO2 emissions are agricultural, not a huge amount. Most of the nitrous oxide at the other end of the spectrum is from agricultural soil management practices. And so there's going to be a big push about ag soil management and how that's working, and tilling and all the other pieces that go into it to try to minimize the nitrous oxide that's being released. And then 90% of the issue that we have then becomes the methane. And the methane piece, they are looking to get most of that treated using something called cover and flare. Now, if you are an Office Space fan, this is not the same flare that they referenced in the movie. This kind of flare is you cover the manure pile and you attach a flare stack to burn off the methane, because that is more friendly for the environment than simply releasing the methane into the atmosphere. These systems are already being built in New York State, and you will probably see more of them. There will be incentives to do it, and trying to cover those costs to get ahead of these quotas for the reduction of the carbon emissions. The other thing that they're looking at doing is 13% of the agricultural land in New York State is not being utilized. And so they are planning to have some discussions and put out some incentives so that they all get treed in. Reforestation will help sequester the carbon, provide building materials, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're talking 5 million acres of tree programs that will be coming down the pike fairly soon. Remember, the first big milestone is coming in 2030, and that's not all that far away. So there's a Reforest New York website, and the USDA also has information on their website about afforestation. Take a look at those things if you're holding on to unused agricultural land. Many other things, but we can get to all those next week. Thanks, Chris. That's all I got.
That was a lot. A lot of stuff there in that climate thing. Okay, John Moffitt, supervisor of Mendon, is at a meeting now, and he has given me the following to read. Special office hours on Saturday, September 16th from 9 to noon at the town clerk's office. So if you want to go to the town clerk on a Saturday, you can do it on the 16th, which would have been yesterday if you're watching this. So that won't be really helpful to you, but it was open, could have gone there from 9 to noon. The mobile mammogram Saturday, September 30th is from 9 to 1 at the Mendon Community Center, 167 North Main Street in Honeoye Falls. On October 14th, that's also a Saturday, the recycle event will occur from 10 to 1 at the Mendon Highway Department Garage, 101 Semmel Road. There'll be paper shredding on site, electronics recycling, a rabies clinic, pharmaceutical recycling. See the Town of Mendon website for details. There's an open house meant for the Mendon Youth Center on Thursday, September 21st from 6:30 to 8:30 for middle school children and their families. Those are who will be invited to that event on Thursday, September 21st from 6:30 to 7:30. The Mendon Youth Center will reopen Monday, October 2nd from 2 to 6 p.m. It will be open Mondays through Thursdays, 2 to 6 p.m., and it will follow the HFL school schedule. The Town of Mendon tentative budget is before the town board. The next meeting is Monday, September 25th at 7 o'clock at the Mendon Town Hall at 16 West Main Street. At the meeting, the town board will be considering changes in the tentative budget and considering moving the budget to preliminary status. A public hearing will be scheduled once the preliminary budget is approved. The Monroe County Water Authority will be inspecting pipes for lead and copper. This is the line from the main line to your home. Again, see the town website for more information. Finally, he says there is important information from the Monroe County Board of Elections on the town's website regarding voter registration and polling places. It will also be published in the Sentinel. That's a report from John Moffett. All right, Steve's here. Steve, what do you got to tell us about the town of Henrietta?
Hi, so the new athletic lighting is being installed at Veterans Memorial Drive. The first step is to install what are roughly 17-foot tall concrete ballards. They'll sit about 10 feet below the ground and 7 feet above the ground. And once those have been cemented in place and the cement is cured, the new light poles will basically slide over the top, be bolted in place. These are new LED light fixtures. They're being paid for from the energy savings that those lights will bring through an energy performance contract with Centrica and a lease to own agreement with Real Lease. So it's a way to get millions of dollars of improvements without any addition to our tax levy. We're really excited about the program. And what's interesting is the lease actually ends before the life of the contract. So we'll actually be able to save up money, pocket some of those additional savings for other improvements later on. They're being installed at our softball fields, our soccer football field, and the new complex of basketball courts, tennis courts, and pickleball courts. Speaking of which, the new fencing is in and being tied down. The gates are being installed. That fencing included strengthened poles on the windward side. And we've reached out to the Henrietta Chamber of Commerce to try to find ask them to try to find a Henrietta business who might want to purchase a windscreen for the town with their logo on it. So, again, we're looking for ways to save taxpayer dollars. The budget process is in full swing. Unfortunately, we have learned even though sales tax revenues were up for the county, because of the way those revenues are distributed to town through the 1985 Marin-Ryan agreement, the town's portion has actually gone down. That's just happened to a number of the towns, not just Henrietta, although our decrease was one of the largest. I'm trying to dig to the bottom of that, but so far I've not been able to see how those funds have actually been distributed. Whenever I ask, I get the same obscure PDF document trying to describe the convoluted agreement, which of course is based off the previous year's distribution. So without numbers as a starting point, the agreement is rather meaningless. But I'll keep fighting to get to the info, no matter how many feathers I ruffle. So I just want to understand how those dollars are going out, and how is it that even though sales tax revenues are up, our distribution is down. That doesn't make sense to me. We started on the installation of restrooms in Breeze Park. Step one is excavating the area for the slab and bringing in the water, sewer, and electric. They'll then do those penetrations through the slab, pour the slab. Once that's poured and cured, we'll begin construction of the actual restrooms. It's a small facility, just 2 independent unisex handicap accessible restrooms. But considering the park has had none to date, it'll be a huge improvement. The new restrooms are being funded by a state grant that Assembly Member Harry Bronson was able to obtain for the town a number of years ago. It was originally to build the play trail that was installed 2 years ago. But as we're so efficient in the install process, we had funds left over. So we applied back to the state to say, can we use those remaining funds to install the restrooms? And we got that approved this spring. So we're starting to install soon. Excited about that. And then there's a number of new and exciting projects coming to town. It's a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential. People have already seen some of those restaurants starting to open, or see, the sign saying coming soon, from the recently opened BJ's Restaurant and Ale House to the recently announced Shake Shack, to a couple mom and pop facilities like a Nepali restaurant that's going in over at Riverton. So we then also have a number of market rate apartment complexes, as well as a number of senior apartment complexes, which we're hoping the additional capacity will help keep rents down. and allow, those seniors who no longer wish to own residences but stay in Henrietta will have a nice place to live. So, and then of course, obviously the new industry coming in means more jobs, a greater tax base, which then helps reduce the taxes for everybody else. So very excited about all the stuff coming in. There was kind of a little bit of a lull for a while, but for whatever reason that seems to be over, and we're seeing a lot more projects come in. So that's about it.
All right. Thanks, Steve. And now we're going to go over to Rick Milne, Mayor of Honeoye Falls. Rick, what's going on there in Honeoye Falls?
Oh, it's great to see you. And again, I always appreciate the information that my fellow electeds bring forth, and Mike always has some great information. It's interesting. The climate action plan for Monroe County also works kind of in tandem, if you will, with the state's regulations and what they bring forward. And to Mike's point, always looking at that, trying to look at that low-hanging fruit first. Where can we make an impact? Again, Mike brings up the point about the methane burn-off, and a lot of our landfills, Van Laer and some of the others are currently using that. And if you go by, you'll see the methane being burned off. One of the things I think the state, as well as our counties, are trying to do is to look at how can we harness that methane and also use that methane instead of just burning it off, which is definitely, as Mike said, much better than just putting it into the atmosphere. But how can we use that for energy for some of those areas that have the methane burn off? So really great discussions and a lot to learn. And Mike also mentioned about the farmland that's not being utilized. Certainly great to see trees being planted, et cetera. But we also see more and more solar fields going up, a lot of times in very fertile farmland. And that's certainly up to the farmer or the property owners that have that. But, with some of these solar fields, there are some awful large brown fields throughout our areas that sit there and really are not utilized. And it would certainly be nice if maybe some of these brownfields could be cleaned up to put solar panels on too, instead of using incredible and valuable farmland. So just a point with that. But a couple of other things that are village related. The weekend of the 29th and 30th of September, so we're just a couple weeks away, there will be on Saturday the 30th, there will be a bike race that is taking part in the general area, but will travel through the village of Honeoye Falls. We've had bike races come through before. The interesting thing with this is that is also fall weekend. The fall weekend parade, which is a huge parade for Honeoye Falls, Mendon, and Lima. All of our various sports teams and all of our students, and there's floats and all that sort of stuff. It's a huge parade. Will be on Saturday the 30th as well. And we're working diligently to make sure the bike race and the fall weekend parade do not get intertwined, because that could be a problem. But I think we've got that taken care of. But there's going to be a lot of festivities the 29th and 30th. Supervisor Moffitt mentioned a ton of things going on within the town, and which obviously includes the village. So a lot of events going on, and we look forward to having a lot of people around the community. Wanted to just mention again that the village is we're continuing to work on a review of the falls within the village, which is also known as the Hamilton Dam. The falls actually is set up as a dam. It was to hold water back for the old mills at the falls. And, we're assessing the condition of those falls. We're assessing the condition of the cap, which is the concrete portion over the top of the falls, which we do know some has deteriorated and come off. We've got a report being done. We've just received an initial report that will kind of go over the condition of the cap and the falls themselves. Right now, all in all, we think we're looking pretty good. but at the same time, maybe some work that's going to have to be done in the future. And I do know that a couple of our residents that live adjacent to the falls are doing some work on their own properties as well to maintain their properties from the creek, which, it's a typical scenario of a creek or river and some deterioration on the banks and et cetera that needs to be addressed at different times. The village is also voted this past Monday at our combined August and September meeting. We met last Monday and we did vote to move forward with a process to hire per diem firefighters to cover some of our calls from 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's the time that a lot of our calls come in and people are at work. This really continues to be a problem with lack of volunteers, which is a problem that's occurring all over the country, all over the state. Certainly some departments are doing better than others, but we need to look at our public safety, our fire emergency response, and sorry for the noise behind me, and make sure that we can get trucks out the door to respond to emergency services as needed. So we've talked about doing that. This may very well be a temporary support option for us as we look at other fire service options, which includes merging with Mendon, which includes a regional approach with other fire departments that are also having some of the same staffing issues. So we're going to do this because we want to make sure we can get trucks out the door as needed to protect home and property. And we hope it'll be a temporary fix, if you will, but it's something we feel we need to do to make sure we're serving our community the best way we can. So there'll be more on that as the plan moves forward. We will be trying to set up a couple of meetings with all of our residents or have opportunities for meetings for our residents to let them know how that's going to work, what the cost is going to be, because obviously anything that costs more, we can look to cut certain things in the budget, but often it comes back to our taxpayers as well. And we want to be fully open with our residents as far as how this is going to work, what it's going to cost, et cetera. So those are some things that are very important in our community right now. And Chris, again, thanks for the opportunity to be on.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Mike, anything more to add? Nope. All right. Well, thank you both for being here. Want to thank you all for watching. Remember, if you want to see this, it is broadcast at 1 o'clock every Sunday on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will be notified as soon as it begins to air. That's it for this week. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.
Imagine yourself communicating with a difference. Pan-Dimensional Solutions helps you do this. Whether live spectator events, taped broadcasts, or real-time audience-engaging programs, you can benefit immediately from the tools Pan-Dimensional Solutions will share with you. Do you want to make a difference? Contact us at pandimensional.com.